Welcome everyone to the next episode of I can't talk today, Purposely. My next guest, I'm so excited to introduce you to because we've got a bit of a story to tell about how we know each other. But welcome, Chalerm, Tuantab, to the show.
Thanks, Emily. It's lovely to be on. It's exciting.
Yes, we were just saying it's been a year since we first met or heard about each other. So, as some of you may know, Generation Us sponsors one of the Young Achiever Awards. And last year we had a Generation Us Young Achiever Award for small business achievement. And Chalerm was the amazing winner.
Yes, which was super exciting. And to be honest, I didn't even really prepare a speech because I didn't actually think I was even going to get to finals, and then lucky enough to win it. So I think that actually showed in or live when it happened. But yeah, very exciting and very thankful for it.
Well, it was very well deserved. There were some amazing finalists and candidates, and the reason that Generation Us is a part of this is to really honour and celebrate the awesome things that young people are doing out there in business and entrepreneurship and in their communities. So when we read your story and what you've done, we were just so impressed by what you've done in a very short period of time. So you should be very proud of yourself, and hopefully today we'll hear the backstory on how that all happened. But from your perspective, first of all, it was really weird because it was the first time that we sponsored the award and we had to do everything online because of COVID. So I was so excited about going to an event and getting all dressed up, and it just kept getting cancelled and put off. And then we ended up doing it online, which was, look, it was good, but I feel like it would have been a lot better in person.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I really wanted to meet you and shake your hand. So it was yeah, it wasn't a bit what's the word, a letdown, but I definitely felt like in person for me would have been better. So I'm really excited to meet you again today, and maybe one day we will meet in real life. But enough about that. Let's hear the story of how you embarked on that journey. And I like to go right back to the start. So we were just talking about the fact that you grew up in Hobart. So you're a Taswegian. You probably more Tasmanian than me. Apparently, I've been here for a couple of months and I'll never be Tasmanian. Not even more. I've been here for 15 years. I feel like I am already, but let's hear about where it all began and your childhood and growing up in Tassie and how that shaped who you are, and then how you got to be a very successful young business owner, running a number of podiatry and physiotherapist practices all over Victoria. And let's hear it all.
All right. Well, I've got a very interesting background. Obviously, like you are now, grew up in Tassie, and you're, I guess, enjoying the beautiful state and the sceneries and things like that. As we were just talking about, I was lucky enough to have my childhood in Tasmania, exploring. Often every weekend would go camping, or definitely every kind of holiday period would either be traveling around Tasmania or doing trips across Australia. And again, as we touched on, every time we'd go home, it always felt like we're still on holidays and enjoying that space. But I guess background to me, again, interesting. I was actually, when I was 3, I was adopted. So dad's actually from Canada, moved to Tasmania probably 25, 30 years ago. Definitely considered Tasmanian. So if you're there for that long, then you'll definitely be there.
Okay.
And mum's parents actually immigrated from Holland or Netherlands. So again, another interesting backstory to that. And my mum as well, especially, has been a big inspiration to myself. So she's won numerous Australian and international awards for a lot of the work that she's done as well, in Australia, but also kind of across Australia, and being recognised for that. So a lot of my ethics of work ethic and morals come for my family. So my mother, and even knowing my granddad's story about how my parents, my mum ended up in Tasmania has been pretty amazing to me. That through or after the war, he worked in Tasmania on a farm picking apples for 6 months to be able to afford my grandma or my Oma at that stage to come over, and then for them to start their own family and things like that. It was incredible. So again, I'm lucky. I've got lots of inspiration behind me in my immediate family and also my mum's parents. And same thing with my dad. I mean, he obviously took a gamble and moved from Canada, I think, to do his PhD, and then obviously fell in love with Tasmania as well. So moving and doing things definitely runs my family. But yeah, again, I guess just my platform or my base to how everything started definitely comes from family. And then traveling a lot, I think, definitely cultured me and got me to experience a lot of aspects of the world. And I think, as you're saying, that a lot of the viewers and people you work with are millennials and have a really good understanding of what's happening in the world, the changes in the world, and if we do or don't do things, of consequences of that. And I think traveling really emphasized that, and seeing the different demographics of the world and social gradient of the world. And obviously, I'm quite lucky in the position I am and I was, but also realizing that my life could have been so different if I wasn't adopted by my parents at the moment. It could have been a whole different life for me. So definitely very lucky and definitely appreciative of everything.
Amazing. So it sounds like you've used your backstory to really fuel and push you forward. And I hear this a lot with millennials. You know, you are very connected to your story and why you are doing the things that you're doing, which I think is a beautiful thing, because I think a lot of older generations probably don't have that self-awareness. So how do you think that being adopted has affected you personally in your life? Like, obviously, for some people that story is very different, and they can't get over it in a way. So it sounds like you've really used it in a positive frame, but I know that for some people it's a very negative frame, that they don't feel like they're in, or they don't feel like that they're living in the right place. And I've read lots of stuff about kids that were adopted, so I'd be really interested to explore that with you if you're open to it.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, I'm really lucky in terms of my family, and I've always recognized that from the time I remember. I've always been very loved, very supported, and I guess given every opportunity in my life, and that has rolled over directly in terms of how I manage people at the moment as well. I mean, just within the clinics, we've got 15 staff, and one of the biggest things I always say to staff members in the interview, or when I'm hiring people, or even through staff meetings, is that as a workplace, I want to be able to offer every opportunity. I don't want people to be limited by the workplace or by what they want to achieve in life. And I guess that still comes back to that aspect of what I got as a kid, and being so lucky. And as you said, I know other families that have adopted, and that it hasn't been the same sort of process that it has for me. But I mean, my sister as well is adopted, and she's been given the same opportunities as me, and she's traveling in New Zealand and traveled in Canada for the last, I guess, 2 years, and doing really well as well. But yeah, for me, I think it having that base and support from them just really created my ethics, my morals about how I want to be as a person and how I want to engage with other people and be seen and kind of support as well.
That's awesome. That's really inspiring to hear that you've used the experience positively. So let's talk about your business journey. So you run a podiatry. So is your background in podiatry? Is that where it all started for you?
Yeah.
So I remember reading your story when we did the Young Achiever thing, and it was a long time ago. So I'd love to hear how you've gone from being a sole practitioner at such a young age to to where you are now, where you're actually employing people and you're also giving back to the community, and you've done quite a bit in the community. So I'd love to hear all about that. Tell us everything.
Yeah, most certainly. So moved from Tassie when I was 18 to do my degree, which was 4 years. And then after completing that, I worked for a practice for a period of time. And then I think when I just turned 23, started my first practice in Oakleigh in Victoria. And then within 6 months of that, I opened up another clinic in Kew, which was fantastic as well. And I guess while I was at uni, I was really engaged in what else I could do apart from being a practitioner or with also being in a business. So I was a part of a not-for-profit organisation called Footscape. And then I ended up being the president of that for a few years. And again, the reason that I got into healthcare, or hopefully a lot of practitioners get into healthcare, is to give back to the community and kind of use the skill sets that we have to enable people to live better lives. And I think Footscape's definitely one of those. So they work with not-for-profit organisations as well. So the Asylum Seeker Resource Centre, and then also with a lot of community health. So offering either services or funding for people who couldn't normally afford it. And then they've got a centre out in McLeod, which the CEO, Anthony, who is the founder of Footscape, has really put his heart and soul into. So they've given out tens of thousands of socks and shoes and done a lot of community awareness and things like that as well, it was amazing. So again, tying into my morals and my ethics and what I wanted to achieve and be able to give, tying into a organization like that, which, I mean, at the end of my time with them, I couldn't give as much time as I'd like. But it was always something that, well, it didn't just make you feel good, but you could also see the change. And then rolling into my practices or businesses, and I guess why we grew so quickly from one practitioner to now 15 or 16 is because I think a lot of the patients or the community see what we're trying to achieve, but we're not just the standard private practice business trying to make money, that we try to empathize and actually try to make a difference to them. But yeah, it's been a good journey.
So why podiatry? Why feet? Because, some people are into feet, but other people are not. It's just a bizarre thing. Like, I don't know what made you think I want to be a podiatrist. Had you always wanted to be a podiatrist, or tell us the story?
No, funny enough, when before I started and I was looking at unis and courses and things like that, I didn't know what I wanted to actually really focus in. I knew I was either going to do something like engineering or some sort of healthcare. It was kind of that broad, I guess, spectrum of things. And obviously they're two worlds apart. But when I moved, I'd never been to a podiatrist, to be honest, but I was looking up healthcare. So when I was young, I played a lot of sport and had a lot of injuries of my own. So then I looked up in the healthcare sector of what was fast growing, what was, I guess there was a lot of potential. And in terms of research and things like that, I looked up, obviously there was physiotherapy, and I was thinking I want to do something a little bit more specialized with scope. So podiatry, a lot of people don't realize that we can do anything from pretty much knees, foot, ankle. We deal with the elderly, we deal with elite athletes, we do minor surgical procedures. So again, that scope was definitely there. And being such a young profession, there was a lot of room for myself to actually grow. And I think that's where, with the business side of things, why I've expanded so quickly, because I've been able to kind of get into a niche within podiatry and then grow that. So if I went into physiotherapy or one of those other big allied health sectors that everyone knows about, you could be a big fish in a small pond, or small fish in a big pond. Sorry.
That's right. I got what you meant. Very smart. Very smart. So where do you think you got your business brain from? Because like commercial acumen is something that is a bit of a talent. I think like a lot of people have it and they don't even realize it. But where do you think that comes from?
It's a really interesting question. I mean, mum and dad, they ask the same thing all the time because they're not business people. Dad was a lecturer at uni. Mum was in the education department. And I mean, I was always good with numbers. I was good at communicating. I was very open-minded. So I didn't ever lock myself into things. And there's a lot of people that deal with me. So I take a very pragmatic approach to things. So yeah, I'm very thoughtful in terms of processes. And don't get me wrong, I love my processes. I love ticking things off. But I think having that open mind and open platform and being good with people and engaging with people is the backbone of running a business. I mean, through COVID's a perfect example that for a business going into that and having that unknowing was very scary for a lot of people, and a lot of other business owners I talked to, they got very trapped and kind of put a wall up in front of themselves and go, how are we going to get out of this? This just seems impossible. But lucky enough for us, we actually, I guess it wasn't perfectly planned, but we've actually got another practice now, which is really taking off. So another third clinic. And I guess through COVID, since the last 6 months, we've hired another 5 staff members. So again, having that open mind to be able to pivot and not pivot into a different area, but kind of utilize what you've got and try to expand certain regions or pull back on certain areas that you think might change.
It's really interesting because listening to you talk, I believe that millennials have a unique mindset that can't be taught. And I'm doing research into this, and I've interviewed over 100 millennial entrepreneurs, and you all speak the same. You all have this certain way of thinking where it's like you don't really see problems as problems. You see them as opportunities. You don't really see risk as risk. You see that as an opportunity. And it's just, like a lot of people talked about millennials being, snowflakes that have no resilience. And it's really bizarre because all of the millennials I speak to are the opposite of that. And during COVID, I felt like a lot of people wanted millennials to fail and, go to water because it's like, oh, they've never experienced any hardship. There's this kind of generational perception. But what I've seen is that millennial entrepreneurs during COVID used that as an opportunity to either pivot, grow, or double down, and they've come out of it better than ever. So what do you think it is about millennials that gives them this ability to think the way that you do? Because I think a lot of people could learn from it, and I learn from it every single day. I'm a Gen X, and I love listening to you guys talk, and I love the way that you think because I feel like there is a lot to be learned from this type of mindset. But where do you think it comes from? I'd be really fascinated to get your thoughts.
Yeah, it's an interesting one because I mean, and being young in the business world, the amount of times I've been told, "Oh, you're young, you've got lots of energy," and then and I've always lived by that. The more you've got, that there's always going to be more people there to try to tear you down and try to kind of peg you back a few steps. And being young and experienced, I guess, generally the people that are older than you, the ones that are trying to kind of peg you back a bit and try to give you those self-checks. But for me, I haven't always taken them that kind of criticism or kind of throwaway lines in a negative way. It's not a tree topper, but it's a good self-reflection point. And again, like in the profession I am, it's good because self-reflection or reflection consults are really important in what we do. And now in business, all the way I think is the same thing. So for me, I'm not afraid of failure because I feel like I've built up a platform where I've got the tools and assets behind me to, if I do fail at something or don't achieve what I'm trying to do, I've always got something or a process that's still going to fall back into. So if I don't hit on the scale, for example, if I don't hit 10, I'm still going to be at a 5. So you're not going to be back to where you started because you're still doing something. And I like that term of just do something. Because if you do something, you're going to make a change. It's inevitable to an outcome.
That's great advice because a lot of people are paralyzed by fear, so they do nothing. But yeah, do something, guys. But
Yeah, definitely.
along your business journey, what would you say your biggest learning has been?
Oh, my biggest learning. Yeah, I mean, for me, and I actually had a really good discussion with one of the new directors I brought on at the clinic, and he asked me, he goes, what makes you stressed? He goes, you've got so much on your plate. You've got your phone goes off constantly. You've got people pulling you in 15 different directions, and you've always turned up to work, got a smile. What makes you stressed? What makes you concerned? And for me, it was a really interesting point. I kind of sat there while we're driving. I said, the one thing that makes me concerned is making or realizing people that aren't happy. And if I can affect that, I go, why aren't they happy, or what's going on to make them feel a certain way? And I think for me, dealing with my staff or group, it's probably been the most difficult or biggest learning platform for myself. And that's not in a negative way at all. It's just constantly adapting and understanding that every single person responds, learns, engages, and gives
Mhm.
in a different manner. And being able to adapt, that's obviously helped in my practice and helping in business. But one thing that I've really tried to get my staff, and again, they're a young team like myself, and I always ask at staff meetings, what do you get given and what do you give back? And I get them to kind of reflect on that in a bigger picture. And when I first started asking that, was actually through COVID, and it was more so to get them to think about the efforts that are put in by other people to make sure they're supported in terms of their family networks, their work, but also in terms of what do they give back from what they're given.
Yeah.
So we were lucky in our workplace that I guaranteed all staff hours and wages from day one of COVID. So they didn't have that stress. But obviously they had family and friends going through other things. So I wanted to make sure that we, as the position we are, still gave back to the community and other people that were struggling. But going back to that question, I think it's definitely dealing and managing with emotions and staff and how they engage and how I need to engage with them.
Absolutely. And as a young leader, have you had issues or struggles like managing people that are maybe older than you? Do you have any people that are older than you in your business? Because that's a big challenge that I'm seeing in business right now. Is there is a lot of millennial leaders. Like the oldest millennials turned 40 this year, which is extraordinary. Because 40 used to seem old, but now I'm 44. 40's not old at all.
Still young.
It's still young. How old are you? Just out of interest?
27.
27. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
I loved being 27. That was my favorite year of my life. But anyway,
it's a good age.
It is a good age. So how do you deal with like managing different generations and people that are maybe older than you as a young person, for people listening out there? Tips.
It's a really interesting one. I mean, a lot of people, the way I deal with people in business, whether it's within clinics or other business that I do, I don't look at people or assess people or engage with people based on their age. I gauge it on what value are they providing, what value can I give. So just like myself, I treat like a blank canvas. And if they're willing to be really motivated, energetic, and kind of on the same path or the same kind of motivations that I'm trying to achieve and the same purpose that we're trying to achieve, then obviously we can work in that same space and often work really well together. I think if you start to look at people with an age or a number above them, it can be to your own detriment. So I know that from my previous experience that working with people that have been older than me and kind of put me to the side or disrespected or gone, oh, you're just young, you don't understand business. The way I see that, that's a detriment to them and their thinking. If people had a more open mind to, okay, well, this person can add this to what I'm trying to do and give this sort of value to what I'm trying to do, fantastic. Or if you see potential in someone, if you're trying to manage them on the other side, of gone, okay, this person might be 50 years old and I'm 27 years old, but and they've got no experience in this, but I think their skill sets are going to be an asset to what we're trying to achieve. Fantastic. Let's work with them. Let's try to get them engaged and upskill them. To do that, then and again, you get the best out of people. But I mean, it's not the worst thing to have people that kind of trim you down at the top, and again to help you reflect. But that could be one of my 20-year-old employees doing that and kind of going, oh, why are you doing that? That doesn't need to be someone that's a lot older than me, because everyone has different experiences in life, and you're often working with people, surrounded by people trying to create or do the same things as you.
Yeah, so it sounds like it's more about the culture and what kind of culture you want to be embedding in your business, and whether that's a culture of acceptance and diversity and curiosity and being able to question things, or whether you're going to create a culture where, yeah, it is very much hierarchical and old school. But being a 27-year-old, I'm sure that it's the first type of culture that I just talked about, which is awesome. So
and
maybe you could just explain a little bit about what your clinics are about and what you do. So I mean, I used to think podiatrists were feet doctors and they just used to shave old people's bunions. Like that's kind of why my association with podiatry. And then I had to go and see a podiatrist, and I was like, oh wow, this is very different to what I thought it was. And I wish I had have seen one years ago, because I've now got hip issues being older that probably could have been corrected if I had have worn like, what are they called? Insoles. Orthotics when I was younger, because I've got really flat feet, and I don't think people realize how important your feet are and how we need to look after them. Like, it's so important. So anyway, let's do educate people about what you do and why.
So what we do as a clinic, I mean, the 3 clinics that we've got now are again, if you walked into it, you go, wow, this doesn't look like your normal traditional clinic. We've just moved one of the practices in Kew to this lovely open space. And if you go on our website or Instagram, I think there'll be some photos. But what our clinics are trying to achieve is rehab, sporting injuries, but also still offer that aspect of podiatry that's maybe not glorified, which is the general care, the diabetic care, which is also really important, obviously. So looking at that aspect, which we don't do as much of as, is vascular assessment. So making sure the blood supply to the lower extremities are still there and healthy, and then also looking at general care. So ingrown toenails, or even just getting rid of corns, calluses, and warts and things like that. So again, that's where the podiatry scope is so big, that 1 second we'll be treating a kid that's 6 years old. The next patient could be a 85, 90-year-old patient, and you're still having to adapt to both scenarios, dealing with a parent to dealing with someone that might not be as happy with you, but they're appreciating the service you give. Specifically with our clinics, again, the main focus is on that musculoskeletal rehab. So a lot of knee injuries, a lot of foot and ankle injuries. And as you were saying, like with our physios, they cross over with the same sort of rehab we do. So we're obviously really focused on that lower limb, lower extremity structure. So we'll look at biomechanics, how someone's moving, how someone's functioning. And then we'll really look in the anatomy of, okay, how do we make something better? So it's, again, assess and then go, here's all the plans that we can offer. But the difference with our clinics, I think, is that, again, really open space, really collaborative space, which in healthcare, a lot of practitioners can be hidden away in their rooms and you feel like it's all very clinical, which we obviously we want clinical, but we want the patient to walk in, feel really at ease, because as practitioners, we'll get a lot more subjective information, which helps us to actually diagnose and treat. Again, like what we're doing here, get that backstory. So if you can offer that environment, and in Kew, it's amazing. We've got gardens next to us, and windows around half of our building, or two sides of our building, with all open windows, with a nice big Pilates area and open gym space. But again, looking at all the processes of what we do, it ties into how I work as a business, engage with people.
Amazing. I'd love to come and have a look. Sounds awesome. Because I feel like doing things differently is really important, because shifting mindsets around what healthcare is, it's more about prevention rather than cure. Like, let's treat people before it gets really bad and they've got some kind of really serious knee problem or whatever it is. So with kids, my husband and I both wear orthotics.
Yep.
My husband's got, he's got this certain walk, and his whole family has the same walk. And I can see my son's got the same walk. So at what age should you be getting like an assessment on your kids' feet so that you can set them up for success, so that they don't end up with these kind of degenerative issues later on in life because they've walked really, really badly for pretty much their whole life?
Yeah, definitely. And this is a really, really interesting question, and probably a really hotly debated topic within the healthcare space. As practitioners, we can be seen to be over aggressive in terms of treatment. And obviously from our perspective and how we treat in our clinic is that education is the number one. So we have nothing against patients bringing their kids in early, asking lots of questions, being engaged in their kids' health. And I think that's the key point to it. If you think there's something that's not right, or and obviously with genetics, that plays a huge part in terms of being risk factors to certain pathologies. But for us, it's that education. So if you recognize that you and your partner and it runs in both families or things like that might have certain underlying risk factors, and then you're starting to see, is that normal? Is that normal? Or just having basic questions, then that's when I'd recommend to bring your kids in, or bring yourselves in. And a lot of the times we'll sit there for an hour or half an hour, however long it takes, to just educate yourself or parents, and then have that chat with kids as well. Go, look, you might feel this and this, that sometimes that's normal, sometimes it's not. But again, going back to that education for parents, I mean, if you look at x-rays of kids' feet, the bones and joints aren't formed until probably the least 8. So the foot is obviously going to move, and I'd really push parents or people interested to just Google x-ray of kids' feet and then compare that to x-ray of a fully grown structured foot, and you'll just see it's incredible that they can even walk on that, because those joints aren't formed. They're a lot of floating bones still. And that again answers a lot of the questions that we get. Oh, my kids' feet are so flat, they're so mobile. And then you bring up an x-ray and you go, look, well, the joints aren't there. All the bones aren't fully formed yet. Everything's still kind of forming. So going back to the initial question, when's the right time? The right time is probably when you've got questions to kind of as well satisfy yourself. And a lot of the times we get patients who go, oh, my parents said that I need to get my kid in to see the podiatrist or physio because this isn't right. I'm getting a lot of pressure from the family. So that's where we go, okay, we'll do a full assessment. And 90% of the time we're going, everything is absolutely perfect. They've got no pain. They're running around. They're freely moving. They're not complaining. But yes, you have risk factors. And if we can upskill your knowledge in terms of what to look for, then you can kind of have that reassurance to go to your parents or the grandparents. No, that's normal. This, and this is happening. And this is what we need to look out for.
Amazing. Well, I think it's a really important service. And I guess out of interest, do you need a referral to go and see a podiatrist, or is it something that you can just go and see like a physio or a chiro?
Yeah. Yep. You can just come and see us privately. We're covered under private health insurance, just like all the other allied health practitioners. Obviously, that depends on level of cover, but don't need a referral to come and see us. You can just give any clinic a call and book in with them.
One last question before we finish up. Do you still actually practice as a podiatrist, or have you stepped away and are you now the CEO running your business?
No, I still practice, and I love practicing. So we've just signed a contract with Football Victoria. So again, another avenue that you wouldn't normally see podiatrists working with, but I still love treating. I treat definitely a few hours a week at each clinic. And I don't think long-term or short-term I'll be giving up treating. I love engaging with patients. I love seeing them, having a chat with them, and kind of following their journey as well.
Amazing. Well, such an extraordinary story. I've really enjoyed hearing all about your background, and I didn't know that you were from Tasmania, so that's really interesting. But I'm sure that the listeners have really enjoyed listening to you, and I really want to wish you all the best in the next few years of your business journey. I can see that you're going to do some amazing things, and for someone at 27, you should be extremely proud of yourself. So well done.
Yeah, thanks for that. Thanks, Emily. I really appreciate it. And I obviously appreciate the support from you. And obviously last year it would have been nice to meet in person, but still a highlight of COVID and those sort of times. So yeah, really thank you for that.
Well deserved, and good luck in what the future holds. And thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it.
All right. Have a lovely day. Thank you.
Thank you.